We are the Heartland Business Systems Capstone Group, and we're very excited to present to you today. We really appreciate everyone sticking around and listening to this final presentation. And we're going to present to you with our Cisco TrustSec solution. My name is Riley Kangas. I am the network engineer.
I'm Wade Wagner. I'm the team lead.
I'm David Connors, the systems engineer.
I'm Joshua Lacey, the security engineer.
So before we get started, I'd like to thank Heartland Business Systems for sponsoring our project, and then give a special thank you to Will, Pierce, and Jake for all of their assistance along the way. We really appreciate all the guidance that you guys have given us over the past couple of months.
So for our agenda here, we're going to start off with a problem statement and goals. We're then going to define what software-defined segmentation is. We're going to tell you what Cisco TrustSec is and how Cisco TrustSec works. We're then going to go on to a live demo and follow up with a conclusion. So for our problem statement, we're given a manufacturing company called Irvin Sun. They have about 20 different locations and 8,000 plus users. And really, over the past 10 years, Irvin Sun has grown so much that they've exceeded their abilities of their traditional network. They can no longer give users the ease of access that they need, and they can't make changes quickly enough, making it so that their engineers can't manage their time efficiently. And they also don't have a reliable and secure way to secure their devices, making it so that there's downtime and potential security vulnerabilities. So what we've done today is we've created a proof of concept network to demonstrate how Cisco TrustSec could really relieve some of these issues.
ESG has given us the following 3 project goals. We have the first one being the proof of concept network, system documentation, and then finally presentation. The proof of concept network is going to be the migration to a Cisco TrustSec environment, and then followed by documentation of the migration. We will provide system designs, a migration plan, and finally we will present all the information to our stakeholders.
So to get started, I'd like to give you a little bit of background on what software-defined segmentation is. Traditional networks use ACLs and VLANs and firewall rules to manage traffic, and these are typically hard to manage, require manual configuration, and are prone to error. Software-defined segmentation is a concept that redefines how networks are created and managed. It uses logical user and device-based groups that can be managed from a single device and give benefits such as easy control over who has access to what company resources. It acts as a single pane of glass to simplify network changes, and it leverages roles to create a more secure environment. So for example, you have 2 groups of employees, HR and doctors. HR employees, you're going to want to give access to HR files and the internet. However, they shouldn't have access to patient files. On the other hand, doctors are going to need access to patient files and the internet, but they don't necessarily need access to HR files. Software-defined segmentation allows you to do this while the 2 different groups are able to be managed through a single network versus using VLANs and ACLs. So now, what is Cisco TrustSec? Cisco TrustSec is a software-defined network management solution, and it's designed to leverage Cisco ISE to secure networks using access-based and user-based machine policies, and simplify provisioning of network devices by implementing device roles, as well as simplify network management by using Cisco ISE as a single pane of glass for access management and network auditing.
So what does this all mean for Irvin Sun? So Irvin Sun, with their traditional network, if they wanted to implement a new user or user group, they would have to reassign their VLANs, re-IP address their whole scheme, and really redesign their entire network. This would take them days to do. But with Cisco TrustSec, they can simply go into the policy matrix, add the user group, and set the policies that they need. This will take them minutes, so it's really taking a process that took days into minutes. So how exactly does TrustSec work? So Cisco TrustSec really defines policies based upon the individual's roles and not their IP address or location. This allows employees to kind of move around throughout the company easily and be able to maintain their access. Not only that, it also allows us to implement Cisco TrustSec over their current VLAN and IP addressing. So with that being said, the users are assigned a security group tag, or SGT. That SGT is really filtered throughout the network through a security group matrix. And all of this is really enforced through Cisco ISE, or the Identity Services Engine. So for example, we have our security group matrix for our proof of concept here. Now, keep in mind, this is a proof of concept, so there would be more SGTs if it was in production. There could possibly be hundreds instead of just 10. So what I really wanted to show you, though, is how we can use this to manipulate how we're going to manage our network. So for example, the employees and the IT admins have very similar roles and very similar policies. The only difference is the phone network. The employees can access the phone network where the IT admins can. That's because the employees don't need access to the phone network, but the IT admins might need to troubleshoot the phones and whatnot. So we've defined a policy that would allow them to do just that.
So how does TrustSec actually work in action? And overall, there are three main steps: classification, propagation, and enforcement. And we'll briefly touch on all of them today. So first we have classification. And with this, users will log on to the network via 802.1x and be assigned a specific security group tag, or SGT. Which SGT they are assigned is based on which groups they are part of within Active Directory. And all of this is being done through certificate-based authentication, which means it is endless to the end user. So as you can see here, HR has been assigned an SGT of 202, and our IT user has been assigned an SGT of 101. Additionally, users can be dynamically assigned a VLAN based on which authorization profile they received. So both of these users, as you see in this example, have been assigned to a VLAN of 10. So after a user is assigned a specific security group tag, or SGT, the traffic is embedded with the SGT in each packet. So as you can see here, it uses the Ethernet frame, and it uses the Cisco metadata portion of that frame and embeds the SGT. And in this example, HR's traffic is represented as green, and IT's traffic is represented as orange. So within the next part of Cisco TrustSec, we have propagation. And this is where network devices receive TrustSec policy from a centrally managed location, which would be Cisco ISE, or Identity Services Engine. A network device can mean a variety of different things, including various Cisco switches, WLC, and firepower devices. As TrustSec policies can get rather large, network devices will only download the policies. They'll dynamically download the policies based on which devices are directly connected to it. And this really saves on network overhead and is really essential for large organizations that may have large policies. So as you can see here, this network device has downloaded this policy based on these two servers which are directly connected to it. The next step would be enforcement, and this is sort of the bread and butter of Cisco TrustSec. And this is where the traffic is received on this network device, and it has the embedded SGT that we previously mentioned in the classification step. And the embedded SGT is compared with the policy that was received from Cisco TrustSec, or ISE, excuse me, and a policy decision is made on that traffic. So as you can see here, the HR user is able to access both the HR server and the file server, whereas IT can only access the file server, as there may be sensitive employee information on this HR server. So with that being said, we'll dive into a live demonstration today, and we have three scenarios we'd like to show you. The first is showing you what the access matrix looks like within ISE. We also want to show you how network devices download TrustSec policies dynamically. And lastly, we like to show you role-based user access within the same VLAN. So before we dive into a live demo, this is a simple topology of a network. There are additional devices, but these are the devices we require for today's demonstration. So we'll be connecting with this desktop and trying to communicate with two different devices. The first is a Cisco IP phone, and then we have our Active Directory server. And based on which user is logged into the desktop, they will be able to communicate with those devices. So with that being said, we'll dive into our live demonstration, and we'll show you Cisco ICE with the access matrix.
Yeah, so for the first thing we're going to show is the access matrix. This is where you can really go in and add, remove, or edit groups if you need. For example, today we can edit the employee group and give them access to the guest group if they need to. So by doing this, we just need to simply go in there and change from deny to permit. We're not going to do this actually today because there's no reason for the employees to be able to access the guest network, but it's just to show you how easily it can be done. So you just simply go in, do that, and then you can simply click the deploy, and that will deploy it to 20 different switches, 500, or however many switches you need.
Next, as Riley gets the slides ready, when a network has no directly connected devices within an SGT, there are no policies for the SGT to download. This is especially important for large organizations that have thousands of devices, which can slow down the network if every device had to be downloaded. This reduces network overhead and in return helps keep the network clean and efficient. In a moment here, Riley is going to enter a command, and as we can see, we currently reside in VLAN 40 with an SGT value of 300. When an endpoint connects, we will see that the TrustSec policies are dynamically downloaded from ICE.
So now I'm going to log in as my user. Excuse me for a moment. So what you're about to see is that once I log in, TrustSec policies will be downloaded dynamically from Cisco ICE. So as you can see here, these are the policies being downloaded. And for example, this third line right here is showing that I have access to the IT admin security group with this permit statement right here. Additionally, we can show you that going to the phones, I do not have access to that security group. So now that I'm logged in, you can see that I'm logged in as my user. You can see that now my security group tag value has dynamically changed to 100 for this device. Additionally, you can see that our VLAN has dynamically changed to VLAN 10. And with this, I have a certain level of access to the network because security group tag 100 is our employees. And as we previously touched on, this security group does not have access to the phones, but does have access to a domain controller, which can be demonstrated here briefly. So I'm just going to pull up our command prompt, and we're going to first ping our Cisco IP phone. And as you can see, it does not want to communicate due to my security group. Next, I'll ping the domain controller or our Active Directory server. And as you can see, it is successful. So now let's imagine maybe it's the end of the day. I work first shift, and this is a shared workstation. So now Wade is going to come in during second shift, and he's an IT admin in this organization.
So now Riley's going to log in as my user account. I just want to give him a minute here to get logged in. So as he's logging in, the first thing you'll notice is that the switch downloads the new SGT policy automatically. What you'll notice here is that the new policy for my account is 101, as opposed to the policy that was applied to Riley's user account, which was 100. The policy applied to my user account includes the IT admin role, and this role grants my account access to both the Cisco phone as well as Active Directory server. If we go back to the PC, you notice that my account is able to reach the Cisco phones, while Riley's was not. So we have successful communication with the phones, and it also has access to the domain controller. So to kind of clarify what you just saw demonstrated here, you just saw that two different users log into the same machine, and without any changes to the network or IP address of the machine, they were able to have separate security policies applied. So now we'll switch back to presentation and summarize some of our conclusions.
From this TrustSec solution, we can see a couple of technical benefits, those being flexibility, less network maintenance, a more secure network, as well as simplified auditing. In terms of flexibility, as we saw previously, the deploy button is a brilliant feature that allows a network-wide update of the policies. This, in turn, gives companies a much-needed flexibility. Also, with how this works is it allows for use of multiple devices. Employees can implement a BYOD or bring your own device, meaning that they can bring in their home laptop and plug it into the network, and TrustSec will load the proper profile for each individual person. For network administrators, this is great because it eliminates the need for manual configurations, and because of this, they're less likely to misconfigure. Internally, all of this equates to less time consuming, which means the company is going to save more money, which we'll talk about later. This also brings about a more secure network because of microsegmentation as well as the identity base of each profile. Auditing becomes very simple because of the centralized location for security and the powerful insight that is brought to network administrators from ICE.
So now we're going to take a look at some of the business benefits of implementing something like this. In 2016, Forrester Consulting conducted a total economic impact study to determine the potential benefits from the deployment of a software-defined networking solution such as Cisco TrustSec. Their study produced some results that were projected over a 3-year timeline. So what they noticed was that they saw a total return on investment of 140%, which is calculated from savings, which included total operation costs, which were reduced by 80%. This was seen in reductions in staffing, improved compliance, and improved scalability. This was also seen in time to implement network changes, which was reduced by 98%. Some factors in this were reductions in project deployment time, reductions in network auditing time, and reductions in network downtime. So Forrester actually interviewed real Cisco customers and developed a composite organization, which was made up of 4,000 employees, 250 switches, and 50 routers. This composite organization saw total benefits totaling $3.9 million over that 3-year time period, which had total implementation costs of $1.6 million, which netted total savings of about $2.3 million.
So over the course of this project, the total hours that we had put into this is about 465 hours. Starting from the beginning, you can see a low amount of hours followed by our high amount of hours, which was about 54 hours. This was when we first got our equipment and started setting up the network. Then, as you can see, we averaged about 34.5 hours over the rest of the weeks. And then finally, towards the end, we started to pick up as we were working on finalizing our high-level design, our low-level design, and our presentation. Now, even though the total project only took 465 hours, this includes initial setup, migration to TrustSec, documentation, and finally the presentation. This also includes trial and error in terms of problems that we had over the course of this project. But to summarize, the migration part took about 120 hours. For lessons learned, one of the takeaways that I had was teamwork is very important when it comes to having a successful project, and without proper communication with all team members, you won't have as successful of a project as you could have.
One of the things that I have learned is throughout my time in the Navy, my internships there at Heartland, and my time here throughout Stout, is really how to adapt to change. And we had a prime example of that this semester when COVID-19 situation happened. And we were really, as a team, able to adapt and overcome from that situation. And I think that's something that we're going to take and we'll take into our next level in our future careers.
Another thing we learned about was project completion and overall just trying to be organized throughout the whole semester and really working hard on a semester-long project and taking it from implementation, all the way from conception to implementation. And that's something that has been really valuable for us to learn. Additionally, we learned just a whole bunch of new technologies. Cisco TrustSec isn't something that's normally taught in CNIT curriculum. So it was really interesting to just learn a new technology and in many ways sort of change our mindsets for how networking is, because Cisco TrustSec is so different from many different ways than what we're used to.
Something else we learned kind of as a team is that security is everyone's responsibility and communication is key for its proper implementation. So before we conclude our presentation, I'd just like to open up the floor to any questions or comments from the audience.
Hey guys, it's Will from Heartland. Just wanted to say you guys did a great job, and I'm wondering if you could briefly touch on how you would troubleshoot maybe some connection problems between different SGTs or users and endpoints.
So that's something we have experienced over the semester, and something that's been really helpful was using the Radius live logs, which is in Cisco ICE, which really allows you to dive in to see, okay, how are devices authenticating? If it fails, what devices are failing, like what issues there are. And it also works for network devices because there's some authentication going in the background when they're sending out the TrustSec policy. And that this Radius live log section is just really helpful because it provides a lot of powerful insight.
Cool, thanks.
Hey guys, this is Sam Wasika with Cisco. Just want to say excellent job. You guys did a really, really good job on that. It was cool to kind of watch your workflow through it. The question I have is that as you kind of look at this,
when they're done.
You guys hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, as you guys kind of look at the software-defined model, and you mentioned 98% time to implement savings. Are there any other areas of like the infrastructure that you would like to apply this simplicity or this software-defined model to?
So one of the great things about Cisco TrustSec is just the wide variety of devices that can be implemented and can see benefits from this. I'm not sure if you're quite looking for specifics or if there's different.
Where's Wade going?
I guess.
Marshall,
going through different places, like in different organizations, but we were lucky enough to actually set up several different types of devices. Unfortunately, we weren't able to set up like printers or anything like that. It was in our statement of work, but we unfortunately had to move to remote work due to the pandemic. But some of the network changes that were reduced by 98% can include servers as well as switches and router deployments.
Awesome, Wade. Thank you for that explanation. My question was more on, other areas of networking, like the things that we've learned in the Stout classes. Any other areas where you think this kind of automation and this software defined could be of help aside from enforcing policy and segmentation?
Yeah. So one thing that you could use it for is to manage access from outside, so VPN access. So you could manage what networks they could implement when they're trying to VPN to a network, maybe. We didn't demonstrate that. I believe there is also a way that you could implement it with like a security solution. So that way, when there was a vulnerability that happened, you could lock down a computer based upon that vulnerability. Those would just be two examples that we could use it other than just the segmentation.
Awesome. Thank you, David.
Mm-hmm.
And Wade.
Go ahead.
Hi, this is Paul Fondry. I'm a team lead here up at the Heartland location in Little Chute. And if one of you guys could just elaborate a little bit more on, how you worked as a team, how you worked together, maybe when there were some, potential conflicts or issues, or how did you resolve those? And if you could talk about some specifics in the teamwork piece, especially remote.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we had, well, you can go.
Yeah, so Paul, we didn't really have too many actually conflicts throughout. We worked really pretty phenomenal as a team. I was really happy with that. But if there was any solutions that we came up or that any problems that came through, we definitely were able to discuss it fairly quickly and get rid of any problems. And really, we've had great communications throughout, and I think that's really what's led to our success.
I think some of the biggest parts to this too was everyone was pretty self-motivated. Everyone got their work done. Any challenges that we ran into, we communicated very quickly, very effectively, and we worked together to overcome these. The move to remote work, while it was challenging, we were lucky enough to have some devices implemented already where it wasn't impossible. And then we adapted pretty quickly to working through Microsoft Teams and some other services that were provided, just to keep on track and then make sure everything was done on time.
I'd also like to point out that anytime there was, different ways we could go about setting something up or an option, it was an open table. We could discuss what we thought, why we think this way would be the best way. And I think we did a great job of just, accepting whatever the group thought was best for the entire project. And as you can see, it worked out pretty well.
And just to add on to everyone else's point, I think everyone was also extremely flexible. There's been times and stuff where it maybe we met within a few hours notice when the issue came up where there was a question that needed to be answered. And everyone's flexibility has been really helpful in this project, especially with the situation we have been in recently.
Great. Teamwork is extremely important, and I'm glad you guys learned that, in this project that you did. And again, you guys did a great job. Kudos to all of you. But teamwork is essential in this field. So, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Say, I'm curious if there's any integration with this into any hypervisors like ESX and vCenter to implement these permissions to that side. And as well, what happens if two users with different permissions log into the same machine at the same time?
To answer your last question, that's a very good question. And to be honest, I'm not exactly sure how that would happen. Maybe another team member has the answer to that. But Cisco ICE is running on an ESXi server. It can be a challenge to dynamically assign a security group tag to each VM, but you can statically assign a security group tag and then push that out to the network. So we actually had to do that within our own proof of concept network, if that answers your question.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. If there are any other questions? All right. If not, we'll wrap it up. So to kind of finish things off, on behalf of the CNIT Spring Class of 2020, I would like to thank everyone for joining us today. And I'd like to extend a special thank you to the UW-Stout Advisory Board, as well as the CNIT faculty for all of their support over the past couple of years. And then lastly, I'd like to thank Heartland Business Systems again for sponsoring our project. And then just as a quick reminder, we'll be hosting a virtual social hour after this, so please feel free to stick around to chat.